Harrison. Good morning and welcome to the Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee meeting. I'd like to open the meeting this morning. Do any councillors have any declarations to be made on any of the items this morning? I haven't been notified of anything, so we'll move straight on to the confirmation of the minutes for the last meeting, and the recommendation is that the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of February 21 be confirmed. Would anyone want to move that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Second that. Thank you, Mayor. Any discussion on those minutes? No discussion, so we'll take that straight to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? And that's unanimous. Thanks, Fig. Okay, so moving on to item number 1, new lease over Riverview Community Centre, 138 Old Ipswich Road, Riverview. Would anyone like to speak to the relevant council officer with regards to this particular agreement? No, so
Sorry.
And just to confirm, which council officer would it be? Property management or community that you're looking to? Community. So we'll ask Melissa Dower to come to the stand.
Sorry, it's nothing complex.
Thanks.
It's okay.
Just tip it.
Morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Melissa Dower, the Community Development Manager within the Economic and Community Development Branch.
Councillor Madsen.
Through the chair, I'd just like to ask, because, and I've raised this with Councillor Fechner previously, there are a lot of community members who are happy with Council's operation of the facility. Given there were 2 responses, could you just speak to briefly the expectation that we have of the group that is recommended here today, and their background and why they're a good fit?
Yeah, most definitely. The recommendation is the organisation that's worked within the Ipswich region for over 30 years. I would call them a subject matter expert working on various complex needs. They're quite diverse in their delivery and program design. Throughout the last 30 years, I know for a fact the last 15 years they've actually worked within the community, and a day and a half a week they're actually out there now servicing and providing a service to the community members. From my understanding, the work that they'll be continuing to do is to complement and expand on the services that are there at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. No further questions. So we've got 3 recommendations here, A, B and C. So awarding the leaseholds to Queensland Youth Family Support Services Incorporated, and that the CEO be authorised to negotiate the final terms of the lease. Would anyone like to move recommendations A, B and C? Yes, thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. And second, thank you, Councillor Jonick. So I now open that up for any discussion.
If I may, Chair, I think this is great. Obviously, there's some history with this organisation, and as Councillor Madsen said, people have been very happy with the council service, so it's wonderful to see such a quality organisation bid. And I think the residents of Riverview are looking forward to seeing this being implemented for that support for their community.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's important to recognise the wonderful council officers and all of the work that they've been doing in the Riverview Community Centre in the absence of an operator. Lots of our wonderful community members down at Riverview will dearly miss seeing Margie down there every day, and I'd just like to acknowledge the hard work that both she and Derek had been doing in the Riverview Community Centre, but look forward to seeing that all of the programs that Queensland Youth Family Support Services Incorporated have to offer for our community down there, and look forward to seeing how they work with the community as it stands. There's lots of groups that love to meet there, and I hope that those meetings do continue. Particularly of note, the Riverview Neighbourhood Watch love to meet there every month, and they're keen to have a strong working relationship with this group moving forward as well. So without any further discussion, I'd like to take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. So moving on to item number 2, the Draft Community Development Strategy 2021 to 2026. Would anyone like to speak to any relevant council officer? Yes, or just no questions?
No, sorry, no question.
Yeah, so would we like to move the recommendation that the Community Development Strategy be endorsed by Council as the strategic and aspirational framework which guides the work of the Community Development section?
I so move.
Councillor Kunzman moved that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor. And now open that up for discussion.
Chair, may I please ask the relevant council officer a question? I apologise for not jumping in earlier. Sorry.
You may. Thank you.
Melissa Dower, Community Development Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for working so closely with us on this and the community on this. It's my understanding this is the first time this council's had an actual community development strategy. Is that right? Or?
I believe so.
Yep. And I guess just some feedback from the community, I guess, is what kind of community groups were involved in developing this?
Yeah. So over the last 2 years, my predecessor worked closely with a range of community services organisations in the development of this strategy. Since commencing in the role 6 months ago, I've actually expanded that network to include community groups. I find them a vital asset within our region. We have consulted with quite a few of different organisations of recent. However, the strength within this strategy that you will be able to see is the element of working with the community for all the projects and outcomes that we hope to achieve. So consultation is really ramping up when this is endorsed.
So if there are any community groups or groups within in Ipswich that would like to participate, they just need to contact council to be part of that?
Yeah, most definitely. The model behind this community development strategy is very much based on a strength-based approach, but also identifying our assets and how we can complement our assets within the region. So I'll be out there, and they're more than welcome to contact me. I really want to work in partnership with as many services and organisations.
Thank you, Ms. Dow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I now open that up for discussion. Councillor Kunzelman.
Thank you. I draw your attention to page 40, in which we're looking at a philosophical shift. And what we're seeing here is leadership in this approach is a shared activity, emphasising doing with and moving away from doing for. This is an important philosophical shift. And I thank the staff for the amount of consultation that they've had, and particularly with Councillor Fechner and myself as the Deputy Chair. We've had considerable briefings and opportunities to modify this, and I have to say that I fully support the outcome.
I think the aspect that most excites me about an aspirational document like this is it can push us to some really creative problem solving, which I think the community needs. And, you know, we talk about consultation around this particular strategy, but if you take one step back and you look at the strategy for what it is, you'll see that consultation in the community is absolutely ongoing in this, because they're a huge and vital part. So anyone who wants to be a part of community development in our city will always have an opportunity to speak with our council officers to help support us in programs, and we can then in turn support them. I know as recently as yesterday, Councillor Madsen had an email from a constituent who saw this and saw that it was coming to council and thought, wow, I really want to be involved, and how can I make that happen? And immediately that connection was made between that particular resident and our community development branch, and those conversations have already started. So, you know, it's a team that's put together to enable all of the good work that's happening in our community and to help them build capacity. So that hand up, not hand out approach is something that has been drilled into myself and Councillor Kunzelman as the Chair and Deputy Chair, and we think that it's a really inspiring way for us to move forward, to enable all of the good work that happens in our city moving forward. So I'd just like to thank all of the council officers that worked on this report. It's really great, and I think that you know, the strengths of achieving some of these goals will be in the operational plans that roll out year to year, and having this very high level document means that we can shift our thinking from year to year, and we're not necessarily locked into KPIs that aren't relevant year to year. So I think that you know, not locking down on really specific outcomes in this aspirational document lets the community foster some of that problem solving in the first instance as well. So I commend Melissa Dow for her hard work on this.
Thank you. And Chair, if I may, as someone who's, I guess, been a volunteer probably for 35 years and been the president of a number of, and on the board of a number of community service organisations in Ipswich and elsewhere, I love the principles-based approach. I love the 5 pillars that it does, and it's going to help so many community groups. And I'm glad you raised the resident that contacted Councillor Madsen. So anyone else who's part of a community group who'd like to be part of this, just contact us at council@ipswich.qle.gov.au.
Thank you. Without any further discussion, I'd like to take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. So moving on to the third report, which is the Indigenous Accord 2020 to 2025 Milestone Report. I will invite the council officer down to speak to this, just noting that the report that council, you know, when we endorsed the Indigenous Accord, we asked for these milestone reports to come to council, and at a very high level and some key milestones you'll see throughout this entire report, but there's been some other great work that's been going on, so I'd like to invite Derek down to speak to that, to hear about more of the meat behind some of these milestones that we've been achieving.
Good morning, councillors, Mayor and CEO and other guests. Derek Kinchler, Indigenous Community Development, Community Development Branch.
So if you could just outline some of the work that wasn't necessarily encapsulated in these milestones, but has been going on behind the scenes and all of the hard work that you've been doing.
Okay. So over the probably last 6 months, as from July last year, we've run a number of events, which is one NAIDOC was put back from July to November due to COVID. We ended up running that event in December, and that provided the opportunity for our community to get out in the community and the wider community to enjoy cultural celebration, but also gave that opportunity for families and that to just connect again, because such a long time away from each other. So that was a great opportunity. Provided opportunities for Aboriginal businesses to sell their wares and be part of a bit of an economy. Provided us an opportunity to seek out businesses and pay for their entertainment and at that centre. So that was a way for us to work with businesses and provide that economic opportunity for those in that thing. We've been working with the Ipswich Library on story time. So in December last year we had a Murray Christmas program, so we had an elder that we paid to come and tell stories to 0 to 5-year-olds. So that was a program that has been ongoing for a while, and we wanted to make sure we keep that happening within the library branch. We've been working with EJ Garrett, which is one of our local businesses, to capsulate stories of our elders. So the process is that an elder will bring a picture that is important to them, and they will then tell a story, and we're hoping to work with Pitch Ipswich to upload that onto Council's Pitch Ipswich process. So that's an avenue where we are helping an Indigenous business, but we're also getting those stories from the community. So it just shows that when you put all these stories together, that they're no different to anyone else in the community. So they're highlighted things. We're currently working with Cambu on their elders program, their men's and women's groups, to encourage them to participate again in that wellbeing programs that they run, based on like it's just been stop-start for a lot of elders groups or organisations within the community because of COVID. So we're in that space, working with Queensland Health, engaging young Aboriginal boys. A lot of those kids are in care, so we're looking at a didgeridoo program. So they've been running that for a few weeks now, and they're getting about 13 or 14 young people participating in that. A lot of those kids are, sad to say, but they're 10-year-old and have no cultural connection. So it's about bringing those young people back into the community, and their carers come with them and sit down and engage in that process. We've been running our black business stuff. So some of these things have been pre-COVID. So what we're now is revamping them up and making sure that getting people back involved in community. So we've been running those for our black coffees, looking at capability statements, because there has been a process of businesses getting an ABN and thinking, I'm a viable business. But now people are asking, what's your capability statements, your workplace health and safety policy, and all of those things. And what we're looking at is a lot of businesses thought, yep, I'll get an ABN and I'm a business. And that probably was a case at one stage, but now there is a lot more to our business. So we are working with those businesses, looking at transferring those skills. We're working with economic development at the moment on the Ipswich Business Expo, and we're looking at supporting 6 Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander businesses to be part of that. And we work with economic development to work with them on the things that they will need to be part of that. So we're keen to support that avenue to ensure that people's, when they go to those, that they can sell what they do and be part of the bigger economy. So we're keen on that. Currently there's a number of major businesses, but Inland Rail is looking at Aboriginal businesses to be part of that process. And I guess Inland Rail, and there's the Gatton precinct being built by John Holland, or John Holland's been one part of that process. Now our thing is to test, because they won't get the tier 1s, because a lot of our businesses aren't tier 1s, tier 2s, they're probably down at that lower level. Yep. But also highlighting to people that, yes, it sounds like it's a construction site, but they are also looking at catering, they also look at art, murals, landscaping, land care, and a whole range of other things. So it's really working with those businesses who can fit into those lower tiers. So they're the type of things that we've been doing over the last 6 months. And we also then we will start working within internally of what we will be doing over the next 6 months now that we're coming out of this COVID situation.
Well done. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
If I may, thank you. And obviously, Mr. Kinchler, we've had many discussions. This is one of the first, I think, reports that this council approved. And so we're very committed and want to see it work. And I understand there's a number of deliverables in the short and medium term, but I guess when we do discuss things, one of the highest priorities I know from discussing with you is actually 3.3.1, which is basically looking at targeting Indigenous work experience, and for council to have a cultural environment that allows that, but also having programs in place to allow Indigenous work experience trainees and cadets. I didn't see that on the report. Are you able to give me an update?
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to move forward, get all our projects that we have been commenced prior to COVID. So we're trying to get them out of the way, but we want to move in as this document gives us that 5-year plan to do that. And now our next stop is to start looking at new projects coming into a new financial year. So we definitely, they're on the boards, because you can't be a leader within community, if you're asking everyone else to do everything. So we definitely know that, because at the moment, we've got Kmart, increasing their numbers of Aboriginal Australian employment. They're looking at new staff for Ripley Valley, you know.
Yep.
Target now are also looking at Indigenous employment within the city.
Wonderful.
Coles have just put an engagement person on to do the same. So it's that is happening in the community, and we're supporting that big time. What we need to be doing now is to make sure that we're part of that
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah.
But also what we have to be making sure we do is complete those projects that we started and making sure that we don't miss any opportunities as they arise. So we're working on them, but definitely it's something that I'm passionate about, and I know our team is, and we're keen to make sure that we don't miss out on those young people and they go somewhere else, because it's hard to get them back.
Okay.
And so we really do want them to be part of what we have.
Are there any blockers internally within council stopping you to doing that, or it's just a matter?
It's just a matter of organising those meetings and to start the discussion.
Okay. And I guess the other one that's not there, and I'm probably putting you on the spot, Mr.
No, that's
Fisher,
all right.
but 6.22 and 631, which we're talking about us working with West Moreton Health and the state and federal governments. How is that going?
So that's when you look at these health and wellbeing programs.
Yeah.
So that's about what other community groups are doing and how do we support them to make sure that, like the health stuff Camboose does, they're doing one element of it. Then health itself will do the active participation in exercise and a whole range of things. So it's a partnership happening within the community. So what we do is support those to make sure that they are happening. And if people come across an obstacle, then we'll work with them to make sure that happens.
Because I understand that we are working with Camboose and Queensland Youth Justice and Queensland
Yep.
Health. And okay,
Yep. So we work with all of those services, work with child safety,
thank you.
so yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is that the report entitled Indigenous Accord Milestones Report March 2021 be received in the context noted. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman, and a seconder. Thanks, Mayor.
Sorry, I didn't ask when the next report will be.
It's a 6 monthly.
A 6 monthly report.
Yeah, 6 monthly. So, just opening it up for discussion. I'd like to thank the officer for all of the wonderful answers to those really tough questions. I think that probably a bit of framing for the benefit of our committee, that although this accord sits in community development, they are not the owners of this document, they're the leaders of it. So that the entire organisation has to adopt this and work to it. So I think moving forward, and an amazing job and wonderful answers to those questions, we probably need to be calling on other department heads to be coming up to answer some of the questions around some of the work that they're doing on the Accord as well. And I think it's important to and take the lead of community development and just say, well, this document is not just for us as council, but for the community as well. Look at some of those amazing achievements of Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander employment in some of the biggest companies that operate within our city, and that work that's being done and facilitated by council officers as well. I think that's a huge deliverable of this Indigenous Accord, and it needs to be recognised. We can't just be, trying to work out, how we're moving and shaking inside council, but how we're presenting ourselves to the community as well. So I look forward to asking a few of the other department heads, how they see their tracking with some of those key milestones. I know that there's a new manager in people and culture, and I just had a brief discussion with her around some of the change management she had been, a part of in a previous role. So, people and culture are having these really great hires, and I think that, that knowledge and that wonderful support that they have in there will lead to, Indigenous employment strategies potentially coming out of this. And just the closing remark I'd like to make is that we're 6 months into what is a 5-year strategy, and to have these key milestones presented to us and all of that supplementary work that's being done, I think that we can be really proud of the community effort that's going into this Accord.
Yep.
Mayor?
Thank you. Chair, and I guess I would like to highlight 141, which is the development of an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander war memorial in our community. Being a veteran myself, I'm very passionate about this, as the team know. And I was very honoured for the team here locally, but also with an Army Indigenous elder, so Auntie Lorraine Hatton, OAM, who's a Quandamooka elder, but she also sits on the Queensland Government, it's the Veterans Board there. She came out here, as well as two representatives, including Joe Lindgren from the National Indigenous Agency of Australia, who've come out to give us some support and guidance, because obviously we'll be looking for state and federal funding for that war memorial as well. So, yeah, I think it's really great and really pleased to be part of it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. So moving on to notices of motion, and I'd just like to move a recommendation here that we deal with these notices of motion, both of them, at council ordinaries next week.
I think both of them are moved by Councillor Ireland, so probably good for her to speak to them, I would agree.
Yeah, I'd like to deal with them very separately in the agenda
Yeah.
at council ordinary next week if we could. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor. So all those in favour of dealing with both of these notices of motion at next week's ordinary, and that's unanimous. So that takes us to the end of the committee. I now call the committee closed, and the time is 11:49 a.m.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be back. Are we going to make it?
So, will I say midday to the incoming chair? It's 10 to 12?
Yep.
Oh, is 12 o'clock okay? Okay, we're back in 12.